All right, guys, we are traveling through time zones on this one. I have Cole with H.K Young Bourbon, and we are going to talk about all the stuff that they're doing. They're going to give us the whole gamut of everything they're doing. So, without further ado, here's Cole. How's it going, brother?
Great. Great. Thanks for having me on the show.
No problem, no problem. I saw you guys are really active on Instagram, and so I shot my shot, I guess you could say, with y'all, and you actually responded back to me, which is amazing. I appreciate that. And so now here we are talking. There is a little time zone difference, so it's early in the morning where you are, and it's late at night where I am. So it's actually nice because it made it a little cooler in the shed. All the people will know that. It's been, in Texas summer over here, it's been over 100 degrees and my shed isn't well insulated. So I can't do podcasts in the house because the wife gets mad at me. So,
Yeah, of
it's one of
course.
those things. So you
Good for
were
you.
gracious enough to send over some samples. So I'm going to dip into those. You're going to drink your coffee, and we're gonna talk about the brand and all the things going on. And yeah, let's get started. I want to get something in the glass. And look at the labeling on that. That thing is really nice. This is your toasted barrel blend batch one. It's coming in at 116.6 proof. Can you tell us a little bit about this, and then you can go into the whole, why you're doing the thing you're doing.
Yeah, of course. And I'll try not to get overly complex with this because I've realized I don't think there's a super simple way to explain why we did things the way we did, because it's not very efficient. But I guess that's one reason another reason that makes us kind of unique. So, the batch one you have is a 9-barrel blend. It consists of 3 different mash bills. So the base blend of it is 78, 10, 12. So that's your Heaven Hill, commonly made. I guess that mash bill popular. I think like we'll cover later on. We source primarily from Bardstown Bourbon Company in Green River. So that's a Bardstown product.
Okay.
It's about 6 years old. I think those were all on the 3rd floor. So nothing
Okay.
super high. Hence the proof being a little lower. And then what we did is we finished it in 3 different types of toasted oak barrels that we worked with Independent Stave Company.
Okay.
If you want to talk about the specifics of those later on in the show, I can cover them
Yeah.
now or cover them then. But
However you want to do it, it doesn't matter to me. If it's on your mind right now, let's get into it.
Yeah. So we early on, man, this is gonna go all the way back to development of this. So
That's great. Let's go.
okay,
Let's go. Get
okay.
it. Get as nerdy as you want with it. It's fine.
Yeah. So early on, oh man, this is gonna way into it. So we knew, obviously the whiskey market is, I guess, for lack of better terms, saturated. There's tons of brands out there, especially the last few years. We kind of had the bourbon boom. So me and my partners, we knew that if we wanted to create a brand, which we've discussed, probably for 4 years, that we wouldn't just come out with as another sourced company. We were going to do it. We were going to do it right and do it where we, explicitly focus on one sector of the market.
Right.
And with it, we decided to do toasted oak barrels. So at the time I was living in California, very much wine region. And obviously a big part of winemaking is, seasoning wines in toasted oak barrels. So, and the flavors that it imparts, I think it's really unique. It's kind of a fun way to do it. And also, you've got other companies like Angel's Envy, who are only doing port finishes and stuff like that.
Right.
So we knew that it was possible. So what we did is we first found the mash bill that we wanted to use as our base blend. So we tasted obviously through a bunch of them. We decided that high corn mash bill was kind of a good one to take on to some oak.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ran with that, and then we sent that over to the good people at Independent Stave Company.
Love them.
Man, yeah. If you haven't, for you or any of your listeners, if you have not nerded out in their blog section before, oh my God, It is, for a whiskey nerd. It's like if you're into cooperages and seeing the impacts of oaks on whiskey, it is some of like the coolest stuff ever. I mean, I went down the rabbit hole with ISC. So
Absolutely.
all that to be said, we went and we decided on 3 different types of toasted oak barrels. And I'm sure you could probably put them in the notes, but so we have a heavy toast only. It was seasoned for 18 months. Then we have no char in that one. We have a medium toast, char number 1, hybrid oak. So it's actually pretty cool. It's American oak staves and then French oak heads. So a little more tannins coming from the French oak. And then we have a custom spice toast that they developed for us, char number 1. So that toast profile is, completely proprietary. And once again, obviously it's made to bring out the spice in it. So back to batch 1 though, that you've got there. So the base blend is 7 barrels. 3 of those barrels were the custom spice toast. 3 were the hybrid oak, and then 1 of them was the heavy toast. So, sitting there blending with some things, and essentially we just, try 20 different combinations, and eventually, ironically, like so far you'll kind of be like, no, that's gross. Like that didn't work out. Too tannicky. That's flat. And then so far, with our blending, we'll just have one that just works well. It works great. You'll get, for that one, we're kind of looking for a little more tannins. And then what I did is initially that's all we were going to do. We're going to do that 78, 10, 12. That was going to be it. It was super delicious, man. Did we send you any samples of the single barrel?
I
don't know if it was out yet.
I think so. Is it 5.6? I don't know. 114.6. I don't know.
That might be how many samples did you get?
3.
Okay, yeah.
I got batch 2, and then one that BOLLS or Bills.
Okay, yeah, Bills packs. Yeah, sorry, that's our VP of sales. I didn't hire him for good handwriting or artistic abilities, so I apologize for that.
No, it's all good. I just didn't want to, say something and be like, oh no, dummy, it's Bob or whatever,
No, yeah. So Bill's Package Store out of Clarksville, Tennessee. He's
okay.
I don't know if you maybe heard of him. He's pretty popular in the
single
barrel game. So we had these barrels, and you'll taste it on the single barrel when you try it, and they were super like butterscotch forward, which I mean, delicious. But another part of creating this brand we didn't really want to become too reliant on the single barrel game, just because long-term business planning. I don't what happens if the single barrel boom goes away and you're stuck as a company doing almost explicitly single barrels. So we wanted to focus on blending, and with blending, it's kind of fun to layer different flavors and play on things. So the butterscotch, bomb was delicious. But for me, it wasn't enough. So then we went back to the drawing board and back to sourcing, and we found some really cool, I think they're about 7.5-year-old barrels at Green River that are a 20% rye mash bill. So you won't find who they belong to. I can't tell you who they were distilled for. It was no one in the United States. Actually, they were just some leftover barrels from a new make run, and they just sat there for 6 years on the first floor of Warehouse A, which is one of their tile warehouses.
Okay.
Have you been to Green River yet?
No, I have not.
Oh man, we'll have to get you up there. So they have 3 different types of warehouses. So once you can nerd out over warehouses too.
Right. Exactly.
So all that to be said, back to batch 1 is we blended in 1 barrel of a 36% rye from Bardstown that was, I think, about 6.5 years old, and then one of the barrels from Green River that has like a really cool, like almost blueberry, like nerds, like it's super fruit forward.
Oh wow. Okay.
So any little bit of like fruit that you're really getting on that, if you're getting anything, is like from that 1 barrel. So
wow.
So that is the blend for batch 1.
Wow. So let me chime in real fast. While you were talking, I was nosing and sipping on this thing, and I love a good toasted barrel. Like there's something about a toasted barrel. It gives me a lot of like marshmallow, creme brulee, like really nice flavors. And you said this one could be a little oakier. To me, it's not coming over super oaked, but at the same time, it does give a very good mouthfeel. Everything is there. It's got a lot of the common bourbon notes that you're going to get, but then it's also, I feel like it's covered with like a that I get it. I get a lot of that fruit like you're talking about, but almost a sugary coating all over it. It's just very sweet and decadent at the same time,
Right.
which to me is really nice. And this is the first whiskey of the night, guys. So it's hitting pretty good. I'll give you that. So you so far so good.
Yeah. And I appreciate the feedback. Obviously, like, releasing your batch one, and so I blended that. We did bring in the help of, I didn't sign any NDAs or anything, but someone that is very, very good at their job at
Right.
Bardstown. I'll leave it at
Okay.
that. Shout out to them. And, I was like, hey, man, this is my first time. Like, I'm in my
Right.
office where I've got, my bourbon collection, and I'm sitting here like making my own ad hoc lab. I
Right.
look ridiculous. Like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. Like, can you replicate what I just blended and tell me if, you think that's like a safe bet? And he tried it. And he's
Right.
like, Cole, this is like, you're good, dude. You know what you're doing. You don't need my input. Like, this is unique. It's something, and not in a bad way. Like, this belongs up there with, some of the stuff that we're doing. So
Right.
that made me feel a little more comfortable. And of course, I
Absolutely.
ran back to him with batch 2, and I was like, hey, can you confirm this? He's like, go away, Cole.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's really cool. Like, if you can get the feedback from other people and be like, because I always tell all the listeners to get a couple whiskeys and blend them together, see what it tastes like. And that I gave them homework multiple times to do that. And we talked about a couple of whiskeys, and I said, hey, go home and blend these. Try different ratios. Try 50% and try 30-20. Like just make it work. And the fact that you're able to get feedback from somebody who obviously knows what they're doing, and then give you the thumbs up on it, that's a pretty big deal. All right, so we've got through where we might not be totally done with batch 1, but give us a little background on the start, because I know you guys, I don't want to say this out of context, you're a fairly new operation, is that correct?
Yeah, very new.
Okay. So give us a little background on kind of why you, I mean, you kind of got into it a little bit, but a little bit more detail of why. And then you're the H in the H.K Young, so your partners and stuff like that, I know they couldn't be on the stream, but kind of give us a little background on how that all got put together, I guess.
Yeah. No, I mean, so I'll put it out there first since we're on the subject. Tyler Young, who, gets the prestigity. I'm making up words, but
yeah,
of being the full name in there. We didn't have him on because you wouldn't be able to use half the show. So we'll get him on sometime, but you just might have to edit out half the things he says.
That's okay. This is for adults only. It's fine.
Oh man. So yeah, so for me, it goes back to, I started getting whiskey, probably 8 years ago.
Okay.
I moved to Tennessee. I was living in Clarksville, Tennessee, which is right on the border of Kentucky. And literally, I think day one when I got to Tennessee, like I think I was like going to the weigh station, and I had to cross over the border into Kentucky, and I saw it was MB Roland. So if you're familiar with MB Roland, their distillery is like, right across the border from Clarksville. And I was like, oh, let me go look at this real quick. Like, wife's back at home, like unpacking dishes and stuff, and I'm supposed to be out, doing work. And I'm like, let's go check this out. Man, it was like 10 a.m. They were open. They're like, you want to sample anything? And I was kind of like, sure.
Sure.
At this point, I wasn't, this is late 2016. And, so I have a pour of something. I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. And I buy a couple bottles, and, once again, this is first day getting there. I'm like, kind of the when in Rome, like, hey, when in Kentucky, or when in this region, like people, drink bourbon. So
right.
a couple bottles, went and finished what I was supposed to be doing. And then from there on, it turned into, I will say, still a healthy obsession.
Okay.
I probably still, gained a few pounds from it, but, drink responsibly.
Yeah.
But after then, it was, I go head first into things, and bourbon. I always historically loved collecting. I loved sharing. I'm a very social guy. So the community just kind of, called out to me.
Right.
So, and this is probably, once again, you're going to get everything. So I started a local group about 2 years later called the Clarksville Bourbon Society.
Okay.
Just to get people together, to share, to, the single barrel boom was happening. So I thought it'd be cool if we could get enough people to where we could buy a barrel and go do barrel selections.
Absolutely.
So, met a lot of great people through that. Eventually we turned it into a smaller nonprofit because we were raising money. No one was ever keep making any money from this. Obviously we're spending way more than we, could have ever been reimbursed by these barrels. So a lot of times we donated, we'd go and pay off like local school lunch debts at the end of the year.
Okay.
So graduate,
Awesome.
just small things for our community. So turn it into a little 501c3. Along the way, obviously, creating my group, I met some other guys. So Tyler Young, he ran the Hopkinsville Bourbon Society. And Tyler is like a serial entrepreneur. So I think the first day we met, Tyler was talking about, future projects. And I think, mentioned, hey, if any one of us ever starts, their own brand or wants to get into it, make a distillery or something like that, like, we should do it together. We've got kind of good networks on both sides of the border.
Right.
And so fast forward to about a year and a half ago, I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, I kind of want to, take this a little further. I might buy like 4 barrels on my own or something and do some little white label project. I've got a few buddies who own other brands. They'd support me and it would, they could just be something fun for me to do.
Right.
So this is like a Friday, I convince myself, I tell my wife, convince her it's wise to throw, $20,000 at me being bored. And by the way, I was in grad school at the time. So, definitely needed more on my plate.
Yeah.
And so this is a Friday, right? And on like Sunday, I get a call from Tyler Young and he's like, hey, Cole, Tyler's got a big Kentucky accent. So Tyler, if you listen to this afterwards, sorry in advance. Hey, Cole, like, you still want to start a whiskey brand? Like, you still thinking about that? And I was like, that's crazy, man. Like, I 100%, like, I was thinking about this 2 days ago. I, finally committed to doing this. So, and really that's all she wrote. Then we just went fast, man. We, immediately got on the horn with trademark lawyers. We brought in another partner, Spencer Collagen, who now is kind of like our CFO. And got on the horn with Bardstown. And at the time, Bardstown's obviously a huge company.
Right.
So we get a meeting scheduled with them and I'm all nervous and I'm like, hey, this is what we want to do. And after it, they're like, yeah, we love it. Like, come out, let's get a visit. And, we'd love to, learn more about what you're trying to do and support you how we can. And I was like, wow, they gave us the time of day. This is crazy. And I'm like, I hope they don't think we've got like $20 million because
right. Absolutely.
All that to be said, our first barrel purchase, I think we bought like 100 barrels, which is still a decent amount for somebody that has really no idea what they're doing. Just,
absolutely.
A passion and maybe a half, sober plan.
Yeah.
And so, we all agree that, hey, it's a super competitive market. We know enough people in the industry. Nobody's going to take us on. Like, people are cutting brands right now. We've spoken to several distributors at this point already. Terrible time to get into the industry. So if we're going to do it, we need to do something that's, we've got a different story.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this with huge love to Indiana whiskey and MGP.
Yep.
We knew that we would get kicked out of a store immediately if we came in and said it was distilled at MGP, which honestly, when we're first going out wheeling and dealing, man, the first thing half the stores asked us is, oh, what are you? Oh, new whiskey brand. Like, what are they? Let me guess, MGP. Like, literally, not very welcoming. And, so fortunately our business model kind of helped us and, hey, everything we do is Kentucky. And then also everything we do is, we came up with the idea to do everything toasted, which is good to keep you true to your business model because there's a lot of time. I'm a super creative guy. Like I said, so is Tyler and, Spencer as well. But having that kind of model that, hey, we're going to focus only on toasted, it really keeps us on, some kind of a path. Obviously we can get pretty creative with it still, but like we have, but it really keeps, you true to your model. And we'll have people, I don't know if you've heard how we don't want to do a ton of single barrels.
Right.
And, it's like, I think 4 this year, and immediately I had texts and comments of people like, oh, I thought you're not doing single barrels. Like, hey man, like, you can't avoid it completely, but
no, you can't. There's no way.
But the blending is, this toasted barrel blend is kind of what we see as our flagship. It kind of shows, a cool conglomerate of our 3 types of toasted oaks, the 3 primary mash bills that we have on hand. So, yeah, so we played around, we bought some barrels, we worked with ISC like I'd mentioned earlier, and then threw out our life savings into the company, and
Yeah.
hope it worked.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like you have to put your all into it, or it's not gonna. I mean, it'll show. You can make it work, I guess. But if you don't just go ahead and take the leap and do the thing, then you really don't have any skin in the game to make it to the end, right? So like you guys just saying, hey, let's do a thing. Hey, this is different. This is a new tweak on an idea. Let's try it and see if it works. And I can tell you just from the sample of batch 1, it works, guys. Like this is a great product that's going out there. And we can talk about distribution here in a little bit as well, but for a young brand trying to get in the market and trying to understand the market, and I'm sure that there's market research people and stuff like that can do all this, but it's like I've talked to many people where it's like you have to own your backyard, but unfortunately your backyard is Kentucky, if you're trying to do it like that. So it's like your backyard is full of a bunch of bullies. I hate to say it like that, a bunch of bullies that take up all your shelf space. So for you guys to create a product and put a tweak on it to where it's not just like you're saying, it's not just 95.5 MGP that you're rolling out with a new sticker on it. This is something new and different, and you're creating it's a different product than was originally there, so that to me says a lot for your guys' character and blending skills, because I mean we all know that blending is not easy, and I can't fault the blend on batch 1 for anything, so I applaud you for that, so thank you.
Yeah, and I mean you obviously bring up some great points too, so I'm sure you've got listeners that probably I would assume a good amount are probably hey, maybe I could do this someday. And I can say, absolutely, I will say it's very capital heavy. But any advice, anyone that is interested in doing it, first and foremost, anyone can reach out to me because we've kind of done it. But, just make sure you're looking out 5-10 years, looking at trends that aren't just now. You're looking way out into the future too, because the risk is less so even now, even though the market's changing rapidly, but make sure you're creating something sustainable and unique. So
absolutely. And that's the thing, start small or jump in with both feet and start big. I mean, that's really kind of how you have to do it. You just start. And that's a lot of it. The other part of this podcast is, I'm the whiskey shaman, whatever you want to call it. And we get spiritual and go follow your heart. Follow what your heart says, and it's not woo-woo spiritual. It's, it's just following the spirit for what it is, and putting as much of yourself into it. And I feel like you guys are trying to put as much of yourself, or you wouldn't put your name on it, right? If it wasn't up to your standards, you wouldn't put your name on it. And that to me is really that says a lot about not only you personally, which we can text later, but but that not only you but your brand as well, and that it means a lot for. I love a good craft brand, right? And I don't want to call you, I mean, I guess you can say I don't know what your your bottle count is or whatever, but let's call it that. I love a good craft brand that's putting everything into the company because they have everything to lose. And so I don't want you to lose, obviously, but at the same time, you have more skin in the game. Whereas these big conglomerate companies, they don't really care if they lose 10%. It's not a big deal. We didn't want them anyway, but you're more crowd focused, which to me is a big deal. So just wanted to say that.
No, yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I mean, once again, another great point. It's because that's a huge part that we have our names on the front of this bottle, right? Right. So when we are doing something it's a huge hey, is this something we want to put our name on? So I mean, that's a huge part of it, which is once again why I changed the initial. I mean, not just obviously us as a collective decision, but I'm kind of the one doing the R&D and the whiskey, mega whiskey nerd, and doing the blending and stuff. So. I want to make sure anything that obviously we put our names on is something that we can be proud of. So, and craft 100%, yeah, we toasted barrel blend. Obviously, we we can talk about future products at some other point in the show, but we are gonna scale. But we all have our own day jobs. Like this, I mean, this is essentially another day job, but we're not in. We're trying to build something long term sustainable. Like I keep mentioning, like this is.
Right.
We don't need the money to feed our families right now. We have one full-time employee who's always on the road and, sending bottles and having terrible handwriting, pushing sales. So, as long as we can do that and then scale, strategically, like I think we're meeting the intent. So
Awesome.
and we'll
Awesome.
be for quite some time. Yeah.
Okay, so while you were talking earlier, I poured a little bit of the batch 2, and I don't know if I'm supposed to go in this order, but I did. So this one is coming at 113 proof, and I know you don't have your spec sheet and everything in front of you, so I don't want you to feel like I'm putting you on the spot. Can you tell us a little bit about this batch?
Yeah. So it ended up, I think when we sent it to you, shoot, man, when did you get these samples? Because that might have been.
Oh man, it might have been 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
3 weeks
We
ago.
might have to actually even send you another. We'll follow up with that one and get you another. Maybe we'll just send you out a bottle. So
Okay.
I think what you have right now is like batch 1.9. I mean, it's 2, but it was literally like, I think a couple days after everything was dumped. So it wasn't married. The final proof of it ended up being like 114.4 or something like that.
Yeah, no, it says 113 on here, so it it could have changed a little bit.
Yeah, so when we first dumped them, it was I think sitting at 113. Then it rose a little bit. So that might have changed, but
okay, yeah. I mean, it smells amazing. Whatever it is.
That's good. Yeah, no, not. I don't think it was bad by any means, but obviously, I mean, I highlight that now because marrying is a super important aspect of blending.
Absolutely.
And so when you're first doing these batches, especially, so this one's a 13 barrel blend. So when you dump 13 barrels together, that was unfiltered at the time. Like we don't, everything's only filtered through like, a micro filter. There's no chill filter or anything like that.
Right.
But that could have been, a pocket of a certain port of it. So I'd like you to eventually compare the two.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that. And you know what? And I'll say this live, even though we're not live, but I'll say this live right now. If you want, I'll do a full review, side by side review of them, and say, hey, this is a sample we got, and this is the finished product, and kind of give you my personal thought. Not that those personal thoughts mean anything, you're the one doing the thing. But I have been trained in the ways of whiskey, so that's kind of the thing as well. Go ahead.
Because like, so when I'm blending and stuff, like I think I tasted that one, and if it is what I think it is, I was like, okay, yeah, this is after this marries, like this is we're there,
right?
But I knew from the samples, like, yep, that's not quite it yet.
Okay.
Let's go back to it in a few weeks, and if we need to tweak it, we can. And then after I think a month of marrying, when we we're going to bottle it, like it changed quite a bit. I think it was.
So I guess my question with that is, and excuse my ignorance, because I'm not trying to be that. So being in this sample bottle, it wouldn't marry itself in there. Obviously, you would want to vat it, right, and have it in a big vat to where it's all mixed together. But would it not mellow in the bottle as well?
No, so it will a little bit. I mean, but the big thing is, once again, so this is, and back to your question before I went on my little rant, it's a 13 barrel blend. The base blend on this one was 9 barrels of the 78, 10, 12.
Okay.
2 of the 36% rye bourbon, and then 2 of the 20% rye bourbon. So all that to be said is, when you're in a vat and we have 13 barrels that were blended together,
right?
Say they dumped the high rise first, and then they dumped the heavy corn on top, and then 2 days later they pulled that sample. So obviously, it marrying like in the vat versus in the bottle. Like, when they pulled that sample, I mean, it could have been a portion that's still the higher rise and hadn't really blended in yet. Like,
got it.
So over the course of that time, you're on a little more macro level. You have a lot larger scale marrying than in the bottle. Yeah, depending on how the samples are pulled, I'm sure it still changes a little bit, but All that to be said, it could be missing some of the other ingredients, that the final blend actually got after it
Right.
sat and marinated for a longer period of time.
Right.
So
I really get what you're saying, because I will tell you there is a definite difference between batch 1 and batch 2, or the one that I have. It is a little more rye heavy. I will say that now that you pointed that out. It is a little, I don't want to say sharp, but it's not. It's a little more. I call it astringent. I don't want to sound like I've said that multiple times in the past on different bottles. Like not astringent, like ethanol hurting my nose, but almost like antiseptic maybe, but not in a bad way. And everything I say is not in a bad way. Obviously, it's a great whiskey and I will enjoy it, but like it has it prickles the tongue is what I'm trying to say. It prickles the tongue a little bit.
yeah, yeah.
Isn't horrible. That's not a horrible thing, but
No.
it's not as mellow. And now that you're walking me through this, it's not as mellow as batch 1. It does feel not disjointed, like it's blended well, but it's not as mellowed out as batch 1 is.
No, that aligns with like initially my feelings on the sample when it was pulled raw. So
okay, but this actually is really cool, because I like to have the in between as well. So like that to me, being the nerd, the whiskey nerd is really nice. And I mean, it's a good flavor. It has a great nose and mouth feel on it. Yeah. So take that.
It's fun. Yeah, I think it's fun. You get to see that. No, we'll send you a bottle of the batch 2, and then you'll notice, because it turned out, I mean, a lot of people ended up liking it, even more than batch 1. That it turned super, I hate using words that don't mean anything, but creamy. That I guess the oils and stuff, were came out a lot better. So I think on that one, it might have been, I think it left out because we were getting a lot of the oiliness from the 7, 8, 10, 12. And that once again is just, that was essentially a raw test pull. So I think too, once it filters, it gets shaken up and stirred up a little more. So we'll have to, I think it'd be fun for you to compare this. It's for you to see, kind of what we're going through when we're playing around. And
but this is what's so cool for me as this guy on this side, is you guys get to say that's not our best, and again, I don't want to poo-poo it at all. It's a great pour. It's really cool that I get to, luckily I've been gifted, get to try all these different things from people, and it's almost like I become, and I don't, man, this sounds like I'm putting myself on a pedestal. I'm not. I become like the backing board for you guys, because I've had multiple people ask me what do you think of it, and obviously I'm not going to be flat out rude to anybody, because and I will tell you this, I've never had, so far, knock on wood, I've never had a whiskey that I just could not drink. Okay, and I've been doing this for a minute, so that's good props for everybody that I've had. But at the same time, there are some that I'm like, that's okay. and this one is more than that's okay. I am going to finish the rest of this. So
where you're like, I appreciate this for what it, you know what I mean? Like, like some art. You're like, I don't get it, man, but it looks cool.
Yeah, exactly. No, okay. So I want to ask. I have a funny question that I like to ask people. I can't find it. I have to write things down, because if I don't, I'm also dyslexic and stuff like that. If you could do like a whiskey mashup, with another, like with another beverage, a beer, wine, something like that, what would it be? Like, I know y'all are, is toasted considered finishing?
Yeah, I would say yes. I think anything essentially after its, original.
I mean, but it's a new. Are you adding staves, or are you doing a whole new toasted barrel?
No, man, it is 100%. And it is, once again, I mentioned earlier, like it's super inefficient. We do barrel to barrel transfers.
Okay.
So we, in a new barrel, whatever the, original barrel that this thing spent its whole life in, the whiskey, we literally transferred over into its new one. So the kind of the single barrelness of it all always, retains its, true essence, if you will.
Right.
So no stave. So I think common verbiage for anything after it's, spent its life in its first, whatever the vessel is, barrel generally. would be considered finishing. So yeah.
Okay. Because that's something that everybody is talking about now because it's a hot topic item. Amberana finishing and honey finishing
Yeah.
and all of these finishing. So, and this might be something that's gatewaying into another conversation, which I'm totally happy to talk about if you are. Have you thought about doing any other things other than toasted barrel, which I know that's kind of your namesake, and I don't want to pull away from that at all. But maybe a toasted and a sherry finish or something like that.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and actually, yeah, you said it. Like sherry is one of the main things that I would really love to do, a toasted, and then because once again, as I mentioned earlier, and excuse everyone for me going on my semi consistent streams of consciousness, but we have to stay true to the toasted. That's a limit that we established for ourselves early on.
Right.
But I still think with that, there's plenty of fun ways to head, even staying true to the toastedness. So
right.
Sherry is a huge thing, man. I've always loved, unfortunately, I think a lot of people kind of ruined it, but the cigar blends, I think our own take on it could be really, 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 really good.
Absolutely.
But yeah, honestly, Sherry's been one of the huge things, man, that I've thought, we could do a blend and then finish it in some sherry butts. And then I don't think you'd probably need to do more than that, but
no.
Yeah, so that's really it. Amburana, I never hated it, but I think that'd be a weird mixture with toasted and Amburana. So
yeah, it might be weird.
Sherry, I think Sherry would just be a perfect one. Yeah, not that I haven't thought of this. I mean, you truly called it, man. That would be huge.
Right.
And then after that, we can do R&D and stuff with some other things, but Sherry's definitely the number one.
Right. And not to throw that one out, but because there's a lot of, and I know sherry's getting more prominent in bourbon as well, but like in the Scotch world, that's the thing they use. They use sherry and port and all the things, and it's not a big deal. But like in bourbon, they want, there's the purists, and I get that. Like pure bourbon is fine, but like to me, some of the best bourbons that I've had have been a double oak, a toasted barrel, the Garrison Ladybird that was honey and cognac finished. Like that one to me was really nice. Of course, I can't have sweets because anyway, we'll talk about that later, but I can't have sweets. So it's like the sweetness of it just really made me feel like, oh, that's dessert, which I get some of that off of this toasted barrel as well, which is really nice. It makes me continue to want to go back to it, which could be an issue later. No, it's not going to be. And that's another thing. And you talked about it earlier about drinking responsibly. That's another thing that we really strive for on this channel is making sure that you're watching what you're drinking, your intake, how much you're drinking, and drinking respectfully to everybody else. Because responsibly, I ain't going nowhere. I'm going to bed after this. It's not a big deal. But if you're at a party, if you're hanging out with people and you've had one too many, you're not just, you're an asshole to everybody. You know what I mean? Not just yourself, so it's kind of that thing. But yeah, anyway, sorry, we got off on a tangent on that one, but yeah, no, I thought that, doing a mashup with somebody, is there a particular brand that you would want to work with? Since you say you're getting from a specific distillery, would you want to ever outsource to somebody else? And you have said for now, is there works of other things, and I don't want to, we're still a little early in the game. I don't want to talk about the future right now, but is there any other brands that you would want to collaborate with?
I mean, honestly, this isn't to kiss asses, but it would still be Bardstown, like doing a Bardstown collaborative series, something where we work with them and do our thing, but with their resources and their stocks. I mean, I think we could make something really cool. So
absolutely,
and I think probably we in a year or so, if things keep going the way they're going right now, I'm sure they would be more than willing to. So maybe be on the lookout for that. There's been no promises or discussions, but I think that would be honestly like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And once again, like what's their motto? Never stop moving, something like that. But I think the creativity, and then, and, once again, I mean, we already do our bottling, we do our aging in most of Bardstown. And for those that don't know, Bardstown now owns Green River, which is why we
Right.
partnered with both. So
Right.
It makes things a lot easy when it's kept semi-internal.
Right.
But yeah, Bardstown Collaborative Series.
Awesome. I love it that, and I don't know if they were, the ones that you wanted to go with or not, because I mean, they're not common with outsourcing. They do a little, but they're not real common with outsourcing. So that to me is really cool that they were, I don't want to say they took a chance with y'all, but they took a chance, and it pays off. It pays off in the bottle, guys. And so yeah, so
I can't speak highly enough of them. Shout out to Lance, who deals with me on the
absolutely. Those guys over there. Yeah.
There's and if you haven't, I'm sure for everyone listening, like, you've noticed there's a lot of people that are kind of copying their business model and kind of doing the same thing.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, anyone can, with enough money, can do this and hire on the right people, or not the right people, but talented people. But I will say, once again, an unsolicited plug, but Bardstown has just some fantastic people. I mean, every single person there is just a joy to work with. So
I haven't been to the distillery yet, but that's on my bucket list of things to do, along with everything else in the world, right? Take over the world.
Maybe next time we do a bottling, we can time it right. You can get up there and
absolutely. That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. So you're making whiskey, you're doing the thing, you're how do you get it out to people? How do you get your whiskey to people? Because you're a young brand, literally in your name. You're a young brand. How do you get your whiskey to people? I know there's teams that can help you with that, but like, do you internally source that, or do you how do you go about doing that, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Can I plug another podcast on here?
You plug whoever you want. I don't care. I'll tag them down below.
Yeah, Bourbon Pursuit had a good podcast.
They do.
They had an episode, a while back that I think was like, are you a brand? Are you a marketing? Are you marketing or brand? Like, which one are you? Because obviously it's two very distinct things. You could be very successful, by focusing 10% of your effort into the whiskey and everything, and 90% into marketing. Where's kind of the sweet spot? So, marketing wise, yeah, we're all internal right now. We're not obviously, but in discussions with some agencies to help on that end. All the stuff you see on Instagram is 99% of the time me. So, which is, yeah, a lot of people. There's a running joke that, it's all my wife, but they want to take the credit, but no, it's me posting on Instagram and stuff. So we were very deliberate too. Once again, we know going into this, hey, we're smaller. Like, we're not, our distributor for Kentucky is Heidelberg, who's a massive distributor, and rightfully so. Like, nobody's going to give the little guy, as much attention as, the big conglomerate. So, and once again, we're in Kentucky and Tennessee. Like, our dumbasses chose to go to the most competitive aspect of the bourbon world in the most competitive time, right? So,
yeah, absolutely.
We kind of decided, hey, if we can make it there, if we can do all right in the Mecca, if you will,
right,
we could probably do okay in other places. So, truly, man, the biggest secret to all that is being semi-well networked going into it, and then Derek Jackson, our VP of sales, who is just out there grinding every day. I mean, this guy travels all across Tennessee, all across Kentucky, doing tastings, talking to store owners, building relationships, building a following, trying to make, not just a name for the brand from, the bottle, but also on a personal aspect, right? Like when owners and managers are, coming and looking, placing orders, and they're like, oh yeah, H.K Young. Like, I love those guys. Like, they know Derek by name. Half of them, you're like, hey, who's the guy that you talk to from H.K Young? They'd say, oh yeah, Derek Jackson. Oh, he's so sweet. He probably bribed some elderly woman, gave her some chocolates, and said,
whatever you got to do, right?
No. So, I mean, it's doing it the old fashioned way, man.
Absolutely.
getting out there, being in stores, doing tastings. Don't ever expect someone to move your product for you, because they're just not going to do it the way that you can do it.
Absolutely.
In relationship space. So once again, like the whiskey, our bottles pretty, that helps, but going out there and building the relationships is irreplaceable. So
let's talk about the bottle real fast. I obviously have media samples, so I'm not going to show the media sample, but the bottle matters. Is that right? Like the bottle itself, because shelf space, and I mean, you guys are trying for hunting for shelf space right now. Shelf space matters. So like I don't know if you know Iron Root Republic out of Denison, Texas. They used to have a huge horseshoe shaped bottle. And they changed that because what the distributors would do is come sideways so that they would fit on the shelf better. Well, guess what? You couldn't see shit. You couldn't see anything about the bottle. And so, like, it's all about placement and design. And you have a similar bottle, quote me if I'm wrong, similar bottle to like, what is it, Westward? Like where it has kind of a motif on the top. It's a really pretty bottle. Does glass matter? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I mean, so another point in developing all this, we worked with a great company again called ByQuest Design, and so we spent several months designing. Going through design, but down to market research, right? And looking at, hey, this is the price of these different brands, their bottle shapes, like trying to find in there, like, hey, how can you be kind of different when you look at, we pulled, I think, on a plot chart or, whatever it's called. Right. And we had pictures of bottles and their price range. And then I forget what, your y-axis was on it. But so we're comparing all these bottles and trying to figure out like how we can stand out best. And, one of those things that we discussed obviously was, even down to, like you mentioned, bottle shape. And if you are going to have a bottle that's weird shaped like that, you need to have it, they call it like bookcase, like bookshelf, where, you can clearly see the branding on the side, because retailers, like you said, it's all about shelf space. So they're going to turn the bottle, they're going to put it in the most efficient way. And if you can't see it, like it's definitely not going to.
No.
Another aspect of, bottle, if you can get someone to pick it up and touch it. I forget the exact marketing research, but if someone touches something, there's like a 20% chance more likelihood that they're going to buy it.
Yep.
So like our cork, it's huge and heavy. It's kind of fun. Like once again, we'll get you a full bottle set, man, a batch too. So you can do the other part of this. But so yeah, we look through all this, and humans are, with all due respect to everyone listening and myself, I mean, we're not super complex. Like we like things pretty. Yep. So we knew that we wouldn't put our name on it once again if the whiskey wasn't good, but it's also much easier if we get you to touch it. And if you look at it and you say, oh, that's pretty, even if, it at least starts, building some kind of cognitive like recognition. So all that to be said, it absolutely matters. We thought, and, the people that we worked in design with too, which is also very expensive, put the thought into it that, hey, there's a lot of ugly stuff out there and sometimes it works. But when you're talking about, once again, a highly saturated market, looking pretty and having a nice looking bottle can absolutely make the difference. So
yeah, absolutely. And like the bottle matters a lot, and all of the packaging on it, like you said, it needs to look pretty. It needs to look like something that you want to drink, and because you see some of these and they just have like a label on it. I had a guy the other day, and this is inside baseball, but I had a guy the other day, and he was talking to me. I'm a plumber by trade, by day. And he was talking to me at the supply house, and he goes, hey, I found this bourbon, and it looks like Red Stripe beer. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm going through my phone going, Red Stripe bourbon. And I'm like, is it Johnny Walker Red? No, it's not that. Is it this? Come to find out, it was Russell's Reserve 10. Because it has the red band at the bottom. I'm like, okay, for one, that doesn't look anything like Red Stripe. He was like, man, that's a good whiskey. I said, it is a good whiskey, but like it's not Red Stripe at all. Anyway, So it's funny how people place all of those things in, because you and I both have to think of the consumer. what does the consumer want? And if the consumer's not wanting, they're sick and tired of the Amberana finish, which I feel like that's coming. And we can talk about the trend in whiskey here in a second.
Yeah,
I feel like that's coming. And they're, people are even talking about a dip in whiskey because it's overly saturated, like you're saying, which I hope for your sake and my sake, we both have vested interest in this. I hope it's not the case, but we'll see what happens. So anyway, going back to that, how do you feel like the hold on, where am I at? Oh man, I lost it. Yeah, the trend in the whiskey industry. How do you feel like that's leaning in your favor or against your favor?
So we've tried to ensure in every way that no matter how the macro level industry is moving, that we ideally are always okay. I mean, you can't guarantee that, but
absolutely,
we've taken every measure to ensure that we are from. I mean, the price, right? So like our toasted barrel blend it's not cheap, right? But for a craft, $79.99. I mean, our barrels alone, man, I'll tell you, like our finishing barrels are $400.
Oh wow!
So like, I mean, we're Kentucky bourbon. Like, you know what? We could have saved some price by buying. We could have gotten older stuff, but it would have been MGP. And once again, nothing wrong with MGP, but it doesn't align with what we're trying to do. So, all to be said, yeah, it's. I've looked at the charts. I've looked at historically how the alcohol industry goes. Even in recessions, it's typically okay. I think like I keep saying, and I mean you too, that there's been a saturation. There's been people that have tried to do the get rich quick model with it. Yep. So no, I think they're I hope. I don't mean this in the wrong way, but there needs to be kind of a purge of some of the products out there. When you're if it's 4-year-old MGP that you literally did nothing to, like, hey, that's great, but there's somebody out there doing it better. There's talk about good MGP. Like, I mean, plug for Aaron from Smoke Wagon. Holy shit. Like that's the only MGP I need. I mean, talk about blending, doing great things with MGP. Like someone out there and his base product is delicious and it's a good price. So, I think there will be like kind of a correction, like in all things that are, based on economics at the end of the day, because a lot, but I think, people continue going in. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think there would have to be something really bad, but even like, I think looking back at like the 2008, 2009, like housing crisis, like, unfortunately, like people still are buying booze then. So like,
absolutely. Maybe,
I think for people doing it right, all that to be said, I think for people doing it right, in grinding out there, I think it'll be okay. I think there'll be some necessary changes and shifts, but, and we're like us too. So I mentioned, $79.99 for the toasted barrel blend. We're producing I think it's gonna be a 91 proof-ish product. Not that we were copying another very popular toasted finished whiskey that's around 91 proof. But so we can get that price down there, make it more affordable, so you kind of have all your bases covered. But
absolutely,
market trends, I think we're fine. I don't think that, once again, people doing it the right way shouldn't have to worry. I mean, maybe the bigger guys are going to lose, their annual or quarterly revenue might shift, but I think that's surprise. Like, so is the value of baseball cards and any other kind of like commodity.
Absolutely. That's why I'm sitting on my Pokemon cards. You know what I mean? Sitting on them.
Yeah, I mean, just wait until the next,
Yeah. Give me 20 years. Man. I'll be a millionaire.
Yeah.
Okay. So I poured a small sample of the Bill single barrel. Is that what it is?
Yeah, Bill's package for single barrel. Yeah.
And it's 114.6. Can you? I don't. You might not. You might know about this one. Tell me a little bit about this one. It's really it's actually a little bit different than the others. Obviously, it's a single barrel, but it's a very viscous and dark.
Yeah. So which one was it? Okay, so that one was finished in the medium toast hybrid oak. Yeah, it's super dark. I don't know if this will show up, but like, so you can see it next to two other single barrels. Bill's is the one in the middle. It's weird. So that, I guess maybe it's just the finishing barrel. So that's the medium toast hybrid oak, char number 1. So
Wow.
perhaps the French oak, which I guess could kind of make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I get a lot of that. I get it. It's
that's
nice. Super nice. Wow.
So once again, a little more. I mean, it's delicious, right? But it's a little more. I won't say one dimensional, but it goes in one direction. It is very heavy in that one direction, and then there's obviously undertones and other notes. But, single barrel,
it's a lot. It's a lot darker. It's a lot rich. Like when I say richer, I meant the flavor. The flavor is singular or maybe plural. It might have 2 flavors, and then it just kind of goes, and it's just those flavors for a little bit. Like I'm almost maybe getting a little cocoa off of it. Like it's almost cocoa like, which I mean I love a dank bourbon, which that's almost the territory we're getting. And so this is the pick on that was pretty awesome. But that's super cool, and I thank you again for sending that over, because that's so what set you guys apart? I know this is kind of a catch-22. What set you apart from other brands, other than, obviously your toasted barrels? That is different. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I would say too, like the focus on, not that nobody's blending, but I don't know anyone that's taking 3 different types of finishing barrels,
right?
Especially on the toasted end too, and using that as like the base blend and layering it the way we do. So really like the blend of using those 3 different types of toasted oak to come up with these blends, and then the single barrels, if you'll know too, I might need to send you a bottle of that too. On the back, it checks, there's a check mark or box for which barrel it was finished in,
right?
So kind of like to show the deconstructed idea of what we're doing, so you can compare them side by side, not to try to get people to buy more, but you can compare them and see the influence that the different types of oak barrels have. So I think we just kind of took something that call it unoriginal, or everyone is kind of doing, but once again, I think, like I might have mentioned earlier, is we're really trying to run with it, and obviously we're not going to stop there. We're going to continue building on that, but and that's one benefit of it. We restricted ourselves to this, but then we can really explore that realm as well. So
absolutely,
I would say definitely what makes us, sets us apart is just really the idea of exploring, the influence of these different types of toasted oak barrels, and from blends, the single barrel being like a deconstructed, version of it, showing consumers, really the impact of oak.
Right.
Versus, I think like Penelope has it too. Theirs are huge batches of things that'll char for heavy toast. So that's kind of similar to what we're doing, but I think we're obviously at our scale more focused on doing it better.
Okay.
Sorry,
no,
and that might be a bold statement, but like at our level, it's you can control a little more.
No, but when it's your own brand, it's okay to be cocky a little bit about it, because if the product shows, and I can tell you with the samples that I've had from you, it shows through, and I'm that's coming from the heart on this. It really takes a lot to put your life into this and have it come out on the other end, and I think that's a lot of what sets y'all apart as well. Is you are literally, this is the thing that y'all do, and you're not backed by Seagrams yet. Who knows?
Seagrams,
yeah.
No. Everything's for sale for the right price.
Absolutely. I will sell this podcast right now to the right seller.
Exactly.
It's like I just want to go retire in Scotland. That's all I want to do. That's
we have split this, because I do too.
I have babies to raise, but still, it's fine.
Before I lose it,
fine.
Yeah. Not to shout out to the kiddos, because you mentioned it earlier, and it was actually kind of an influence for me too. Is you mentioned Scotch and how people are blending, and that's kind of one thing that influenced me to do these like barrel to barrel transfers, and kind of like, hey, maybe pull from something that's this age, same mash bill, different parts of warehouse, different toasted oak barrels. So there's a book that I read, Blending Nose. Shoot, I can't remember it now, but you know, it goes really, really in depth to the history of Scotch and Scotch blending. And that was like something, I was like, hey, Scotch does it this way. Like, why doesn't bourbon? You know, they're using all these different casks and they're, you know, they're creating something. They can do it consistent. They can run off on this own project. So eventually, you know, I would like to have it where we could do something similar to, you know, say with obviously the toasted influence, but, you know, using sherry and stuff too to change the profile. So that was a big influence as well, as looking at how, you know, Scotch blenders are doing it and wondering why we're not doing something similar in bourbon. Yeah.
Okay. I got one more question for you. And this is just a real simple question. It might not be simple. Who knows? What are a tip that you would give to somebody who wants to get into whiskey, either a whiskey brand or get into whiskey drinking? What is a tip that you would give them? And I feel like they could be the same tip, but what is a tip that you would give somebody wanting to get into the whiskey scene?
The whiskey scene. So I guess on a consumer perspective, I would say kind of like put yourself out there, go to like some kind of local meetups, find a group. Like, I mean, that's some of the best ways to learn and taste some things that you would never have the opportunity to taste. I mean, some of the things that I've had, you know, Victor's 20, like some of the just crazy high end, some of the, you know, old sourced Willets. You know, I'm not going to go out and, I mean, I've bought some expensive things, but I'm not going to go out and buy a $10,000 bottle.
Absolutely not.
There's people out there that have had those bottles, you know, since 12 years ago when they got released and nobody cared about them. So all that to be said, you know, kind of put yourself out there, find a group. There's plenty of them now. You know, wasn't a thing 6-7 years ago, but now there's so many ways to get into it and experience some really, really fun, unique things. Secondly, I would say don't be a purist, because there's no reason to be. If you are, I think you're kind of lying to yourself. Like, oh, I only drink like straight bourbon. Like, that's, you know, do you, but I think you're kind of lying to yourself. There's plenty of good things out there. You know, you could say, hey, maybe toasted barrel things aren't like, and that's perfectly fine with me. Like, more power to you. But there's other things out there that are very, very good. You don't need to be a purist. Nobody cares. Don't just drink the Trace. Like, that's cool if that's your go-to, but like, I mean, unless you're mixing it with Coke or something, like, there's no reason to be a purist.
Right. Absolutely.
And then if you're trying to, I guess, get into the brand side of things, make sure you're well networked. I need to be careful here. Most people in the industry are very willing to help you. The ones worth, you know, seeking the help will give you the help. The ones that are jealous or overly prideful, you know, you're going to lose them anyway. So one, you know, I will say this, and I bet any brand owner that hears this will probably chuckle. Very early on to this, you know, creating you a brand, there's like this, I'm a pretty humble dude. I really think I am. There's some bizarre jealousy and things that pop out of the woodwork. So not to go down that rabbit hole, but, you know, don't worry too much about others. Like, you know, if you want to get into the industry, do it. You know, if that's your passion, go for it. Ask for help, ask the questions, ask the stupid questions. None of us knew it, you know, at some point either.
Right.
Laws are confusing. Everything's confusing. Like, it's not easy, and it's not meant to be easy, but find a mentor, find someone that's willing to help you. And like I said, I wouldn't be here if I couldn't have asked, you know, 7 other people these questions. And so, yeah.
And unfortunately, this, and not to get off on this tangent, but as a male human, you know, sus, whatever you want to call me, as a male, we don't ask for help. We don't. We will die on that hill.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
will never ask for help. And when you don't know, like, you could be the best distiller in the world, but if you can't market that product, you're not going to be profitable. Or you could be the best blender in the world, or you could be the best skyscraper builder. It doesn't matter. It goes around the world. You know, if you don't ask for help, and if you don't delegate even, which I feel like you guys at your brand are trying to, you know, you find your niche and you're like, hey, I can do this, this, and this. You take care of this part. That's the whole thing, is like delegating, not trying to be I have to oversee everything in the life. Like, it's hard. It's really hard as a male to do that, because it's hard to step back and be like, hey, I need help at this. I can do a lot of it, but I can't do all of it. And so having a good team that you can call for marketing, or a good team that you can call for bottle sales or whatever, that to me is a big deal. And I feel like that's kind of what you're pointing at, is just get out there, do your thing, but know your limits of what you can do. Does that make
in worst case, you're building relationships by putting yourself out there. Once, like, it's such, everything in this community is relationships based.
Yeah.
Like, and you'd be surprised at some of the the famous people in the industry that if you just asked, like, hey, do you mind like talking to me? Like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And then that can become a lifelong friend or mentor. Or, yeah.
Yep. I've had people that have told me, I haven't talked to him personally, that have gone up to Jimmy Russell and been like, hey, I got a question. And he sit down and talk to them for an hour about it. And I'm like, this man has more knowledge than anybody in this room. And he's sitting there talking to you about, fermentation temperatures or whatever. Yeah. So you're never going to know unless you ask the question. Right. And it's kind of like that saying, you never know until you ask. So anyway, so okay.
Any of your listeners that ever go on a Russell's pick, if one of the Russells is there, make sure that you get a banana note and just watch their reaction.
Oh God. Why would you say that?
Please, someone do it and give us the feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to flip. Okay, before we get off, do you have any other things you want to talk about?
Any other questions you have, man? No, I don't want to overrun this and make you over edit it. So
no, it's all good. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your socials, where people can find you if they want to buy a bottle. Is that an option? And tell me slow so I can write it down. I'm a left-handed Pollock, remember, so I gotta write this stuff down. Go ahead.
Good. Okay. So socials, predominantly Instagram, Facebook, so just at HK Young Bourbon. I tried doing the TikTok thing. Maybe once we hire on a marketing company, we'll get it, but I don't personally have the time or desire to spend too much time on TikTok anymore. Amen. So sorry, TikTokers. Mm-hmm. We will be there, but we're not good at that. Instagram predominantly.
We're not dancing.
We have a website in development, so hkyoungbourbon.com. That's another thing that unfortunately I've decided to head on. So as we have launched the brand and I'm traveling across the world and things, developing the website is slow, but we're getting there. And that similar, I kind of looked at Joseph Magnus. So with the toasted barrel blends, the goal is that you can go on there, see what the blend consisted of, why we named it, like, batch 1 was Gambit, batch 2 is Panacea. There's a little write up. Yep, exactly. So why we did it that way. And then what was the other question? Where you can find? And we just launched batch 2. And right now we have, I think, a few cases left on Bourbon Outfitters or Bourbon Outfitter. So you can just Google that, Bourbon Outfitter, HK Young, and it is available online. And once the online stuff goes, like it's gone. We send the online retailers about 20 cases.
Okay.
And then that's it. So we have distribution, Kentucky, Tennessee, obviously that's steadily growing.
Right.
And then we are actually right now working through distribution for New York, New Jersey. So you'll see us in the States as well. Cool.
That is super cool. And I cannot thank you, Cole, enough for coming on here and talking to me. I know it's early. Well, not so much anymore, but I know it's early over there and it's late over here. So I appreciate you being here with me and hang on the line. I want to talk to you for a second, but I appreciate all of you out there. And if you haven't heard of HK Young, go out and find them. Get you a little sample of this. Bourbon Outfitters also carries JT Mellick, so you can go get your rice whiskey and you're HK Young at the same time. See, I have to cross, pollinate here.
Make the shipping
So,
worth it. Yeah. Hey, no, not
absolutely, got to make it worth it for everybody. And
exactly.
like I told everybody else on that has came on the podcast, you're part of the family now. So as part of the family, I and all of the group are going to support you as much as they can with all the socials and all the things, and all we'll tag you and everything. And that's just kind of what we do. That's our thanks to you for coming on the podcast, because obviously we're not getting paid, you're not getting paid for any of this, so I want to make sure that you guys get as much as you can from this podcast. That's why we put it out on not Instagram, on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Podbean. Oh, good Lord, Amazon. There's the things. There's a lot of things that we put it out on. So y'all be good, and until next time, you know what to do. Keep your spirits up. Thank y'all.
All right, guys, welcome back. Today we are going to we're going to do a little review, a little side by side of H.K Young. This is Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey Toasted Barrel Blend. This is batch 2. Let's get into it. All right, so here's the deal. I don't even know if you guys have heard of H.K Young before. What they are is they are not an independent bottler. They are a non-distilling producer. And what they are doing is they're taking whiskey and they are doing a toasted barrel finishing. Okay. So let's get into that. That's going to be really fun. So they were gracious enough. They just came on the podcast. So make sure you go check that out. I'm actually going to tag this video to the end of that. So if you've already seen the podcast, you'll know what I'm talking about. So they sent over a sample. I don't know if you can see it. It's a fairly good sample of their batch 2. This one was 113 proof. And Cole, who is the H in HK, is his last name, right? He came on the podcast and we talked about their brand and their whiskey and stuff like that. And as we were going through this one, I'm going to pour it in the Baker Drinks Glen. As we were going through it, I mentioned a note, and he was like, "Oh, why did you get that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It's a little hot. It's a little fiery, Why?" He's like, "Why did you get that?" He goes, "Well, when we poured this sample for you, we pulled it right out of the marrying vat, right? It hadn't been bottled yet. So they had just dumped it in the marrying vat. Now, could it have married in the bottle while the podcast was, it's been maybe a month since we did the podcast. Could it have mellowed in the bottle? Let's check. It was a good whiskey. Don't get me wrong. It was a good whiskey, but it was a little disjointed at the end. So what he did, he was gracious enough to send me over a full bottle of batch 2. Thank you so much, Cole. And I cannot wait to get into this. Let's go. I'm going to pour off a little bit. We still got stuff to do today, so we're not going to do a big pour. And the bottle design is really pretty. It says Kentucky Straight. I already said all that. Batch 2. This one is 114.4 proof, so 57.2. Aged 6 years in oak, and then finished in a toasted. Now, they are very transparent. They are sourcing from Bardstown, which we love Bardstown, right? So no problems there. So let's get into the whiskey. You guys go check out the podcast if you want to learn more about the actual brand, right? Let's get into the whiskey. We're going to call the one in the Baker Drinks Glen, we're going to call that 1.9, right? And this is batch 2. Is there a color difference? No, well, there's a little bit more in this one. I didn't pour correctly, but I don't think there's a color difference. Okay. Vanilla, cherry, like medicinal cherry. Oak, a lot of oak. 6 years plus, don't quote me on this, go back and listen, but I think they aged it for another 4 months, 3 or 4 months in toasted. And they're using like different toast profiles, and then they blend them together. So they're doing blending and all types of other stuff. All right, let's get into it. Okay. Cream, vanilla, toasted marshmallow, maybe. A lot of barrel influence. Barrel candy, though. It's a little sweet. It's really nice. It lingers. You start to get that Kentucky hug right away. All right, get some water. Always got to hydrate. Water. Okay, now let's move on to the other one. Now this is batch 2. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to reference batch 1.9. It smells different. It really does. It really smells different. This one, you get a lot more ethanol and like medicinal cherry. The batch 2 is more creme brulee. Maybe even some pipe tobacco. Okay, let's get into batch 2. They are wildly different. Whoa, wildly different. Holy moly. Who would have thought marrying a whiskey would make it taste so different? He did give me a sample of batch 1, and it's excellent. Don't get me wrong. This one, wow. I am impressed. Okay, I'm going to go, man, more water. Sorry. I'm going to go back to batch 1.9. Yeah, man, I hate to say it like this because this is no disrespect to H.K Young at all. They pulled it off the marrying vat, so it wasn't fully matured or fully married together, you know. And I think people misunderstand when you do blending, you have to let it sit. You can't just blend two things together and start drinking it. Like it gets all disjointed, it gets out of place. And I thought being in the bottle for as long as it has, that it would have softened some of that stuff out, but it hasn't. Yeah, man, the rye is coming through. Watch it not be rye. The spiciness is coming through a lot on batch 1.9. Wow. Yeah, it prickles the back of your throat. Again, it's a great whiskey. Don't get me wrong. It's great. But it just has these little pops of, I'm going to call it pops of inconsistency in it. Like it's almost like a Richter scale. It's doing like. Now let's go back to batch 2. That just means I have to drink one and then the other. I want to thank Cole so much for coming on the podcast and hanging out with me. It was a blast. When you get to drink good whiskey with good people, it's pretty awesome. Oh, man. Yeah, night and day difference. Night and day difference. Creamy. Creme brulee. Pipe tobacco. But like the flavored, almost like the cherry pipe tobacco. I love that. Like, I don't like pipes or anything like that. Oh, man. It's so cohesive. It's so together. It's just, if you're looking for a great toasted barrel finished whiskey, look no further than H.K Young. Like I said, this is the second iteration that they did. What do they call it? Panria? Anyway, doesn't matter. Excellent, excellent stuff. Go pick it up if you can find it. They do have pretty good distribution. You might be able to get it off their website. Seelbach, I think, has it as well. So, with it, let's score it. Why not? Let's score it. So I'm not going to score 1.9. I'm not because it wouldn't get the highest marks. It's great. Don't get me wrong. It's great, but oh wow, I got lots of notes, man. What am I doing? Okay, where can I find? I'll score it right next to this one. How about that? All right, so we do it on nose, taste, finish, and would I buy again, right? That's what we do. Okay, so let's nose it. We're going to do this fast. Man, it's a great bourbon. I mean, Bardstown makes amazing products, and then when you finish it, it's just going to okay, I'm going to give that an 8. Yeah, it's excellent. Man, so creamy, so creamy. But then you get that oakiness, but it's really cohesive. It's really nice. It's not overpowering. That there's something about that toasted. It's like a marshmallow type. I'm going to give that a 9. The flavors on it are really good. Think about what you're drinking though. You have to base it accordingly. I'm finished. I gotta have another little sip because I was talking instead of finishing. Yeah, I did the chew. Okay. Finish goes on. Man, it leaves you like with a praline. No banana, no fruit really. If it's a fruit, it's a red delicious apple, right? Like one of those big old apples. I am going to give that 8.5. Yeah. Out of 10. This is out of 10, right? All right. Would I buy again? Okay. Well, as you well know, I did not purchase this bottle. So, would I buy this bottle? Had I not known, would I have bought this bottle? No, because there's so many whiskeys on the shelf, right? And that's why it is my job as the podcasty dude to give you brands you might not have heard of and say, these guys are making some cool stuff. You need to go find them. Will I pick up batch 3 when it comes out? Absolutely. So I am going to give that an 8. Yeah, I'm going to give it an 8 because it's really, really nice. It's a down to earth. I could give this to anyone, and they're going to say it's a great bourbon. Great bourbon. All right, I'm going to tally the votes real fast because I can't add. So, man, I had to get a calculator. I don't know. Okay, so I scored this 33.5. Yeah. Out of 40, I guess. So that's a really good score. I would say if you can find this, go get it. Go look them up, please. I will have all their description down below, the story, everything. I don't know if you read any of the stuff that I put in the description, or are you just like clicking, because I put a lot of work into that description, and I need you to listen to it. So if you like what I'm doing, if you like anything that I'm throwing at you, please follow, like, subscribe, do all the algorithmy things. And I'd like to thank my sponsors. Yeah, I have sponsors. Z Smith Whiskey and Mixology and Bad Motivator Barrels. They will be linked down below. And also, if you want to support monetarily, you're doing enough. But if you want to support monetary and get before the episode exclusive episodes, go to patreon.com/thewhiskeyshaman and sign up today. You can get in for as little as $1 a month. What are you doing? You got more than that in your couch cushions, right? Okay. So until next time, y'all be good, be safe, drink water, and keep your spirits up.